One group was people who has a family history of diabetes, and another group had no family history of diabetes. But yes, sugars are the simplest form of carbs.
Talking about sugar, do you think sugar is the enemy?
Sugar obviously is the one, but then the cereals that and that cereals includes everything, includes chapati, includes rice, includes your cornflakes, includes your oats. All of them are cereals.
Got it.
They give rise to immediate rise in your sugar values. Because of this hormonal interference, your sugar levels start going up automatically, even if you are not eating anything. I personally like solving problems.
Okay, we spoke about foods and how vegetables have the least amount of sugars in them. Uh, I've read somewhere that having your meal in a certain order also impacts your glucose spike. Is that true?
So when you say order in which you eat, you
Right.
mean at each meal.
No, so it was said that when you eat a meal, you should start with your veggies,
Right.
and then gradually move on to carbohydrates. So that kind of helps your body break down the sugar more easily.
So see, I'll tell you, this is more common sense than a biological sense.
Okay.
So what happens is that if you take more veggies right at the start, first of all, two things will happen. So you will feel already full.
Okay.
So the amount of carbohydrates that you are going to eat subsequently are going to be lower than you start with carbohydrates. Second thing is what happens is, as we talked about glycemic index. So if your fibers are already in, so if you are eating your carbohydrates subsequently, then the spike is going to be much lower. So because now your fibers are going to bind that carbohydrates inside your gut.
Got it.
And then the sugar released would be much lower. So your spike would be lower, and also because you would be eating less, so the overall food quantity gets lower. Now it has got a beautiful implication again for people who travel a lot. So a lot of people with diabetes come to us. They say that we travel, we stay at hotels, and then we would have to eat whatever they serve. So my advice to them always is, start with fibers, take first helping of fibers, sit down, finish it off.
Okay.
Take second helping of proteins,
Okay.
eat that. If you are a vegetarian, then maybe grilled cheese, cottage cheese will help. Or if you are a non-vegetarian, then eggs or anything grilled, eat that, sit down, and then last helping should be of carbohydrates of the meal, the chapatis, the rice, the gravy, things that you want to have. So what happens by that is that even if that food is rich in carbs and oils, so you've done it in such a way that your tummy is already full with good food to start with, and then taking small amount of that food becomes okay.
Got it. Got it. It's very interesting because in the Indian scenario, we usually have everything together.
Yes,
like we have the
absolutely.
salads, the dal, roti, everything.
Absolutely.
So, kind of dividing that meal into these.
Yeah, it definitely helps. It definitely, I tell them that you don't have to, even if you're saying I'm going to take larger salad and everything, I end up telling them no, you have to get up 3 times, take 3 different helpings, sit down, finish them off, then go off. Because I know as an Indian palate, you will always end up indulging more in carbs, because that's where your taste buds and palate would lead you to.
Right. Coming to a very controversial question.
Okay.
Can diabetes be reversed?
Oh, for sure. I think it's no longer controversial. So, see, when we say diabetes can be reversed, I think at the outset, what we need to understand is that the way this word is promoted, if we understand that, then there is no controversy around it.
Okay.
As we talked, that diabetes is a problem of your genes and your lifestyle, right? So, beyond a certain point, you really can't cure it.
Yes.
You can cure some infection, but you can't cure a lifestyle or a genetic disease.
Yes.
Right? What you can do is you can change the conditions by which the way your body reacting at the baseline changes. Right? So what we talked earlier was that there is a genetic basis, there is a lifestyle changes. While genes we can't change, but lifestyle can be changed, and both of them come together to contribute towards happening of diabetes.
Got it.
So if we change our lifestyle, if we reduce that extra fat from our own body, then there is good enough chance that we can bring our body to a state where no medications would be required
Okay.
for us to sustain our sugar levels. But we will have to maintain our lifestyle. We will have to maintain diet and exercise. That's for sure. I don't think so we can get to a state where somebody has diabetes even after lifestyle change or losing some weight, while they may not need any medicines, but they cannot do without, like, I can't say that okay, you now will be able to eat sweets at your own whim again. So that state is not going to come back, but we can definitely do without medicine, and that's the scientific definition of diabetes reversal, that you are no longer requiring diabetes medication and your sugar levels are in a non-diabetic range.
Got it.
And in studies, it has been shown that if it is done with a good intent, as a teamwork, where the entire team works with the patients, you can reverse diabetes almost in 35 to 40% of people.
Okay.
Worldwide. The more earlier you start, somebody who start, like you just have diabetes, then first 4 years are like super successful.
Okay.
First 7 years, you can still do it. Beyond 7 years, of course, you would need a huge amount of motivation, because by that time, body has undergone some metabolic changes. So the chances are less, but they are not zero. We have people who've got 11, 15 years of diabetes, and who with their own motivation, with little help, they could go off medicines. In fact, they went off their antidepressants also, because they were so depressed. But once they started making a positive change, they went off
All
antidepressants also.
Right.
So it's a reality. And in fact, if you would ask me now, if anybody comes to me with a new onset diabetes or very early diabetes, that's what, as a clinician or a physician, I aim it for. In very first visit, we tell them, this is what you should aim for, and these are the ways to go about it. And then it is up to an individual person how motivated they are.
Got it.
And believe me, now more than not, people are actually choosing this when they try to understand what it is. And because now we are dealing with much younger people with higher motivation, so we have had very good results.
Got it. And speaking of good results,
Right.
could you talk something about the diabetes management program that we're doing at TruePal?
Yeah.
And how is that different from what other programs are offering?
Right. So see, Dhinal, now these programs that all are running, basically they come under an umbrella term of something called managed diabetes care.
Yes.
What people have realized over time is that diabetes is a long-term disease. Like any other problem which is a long-term, you need a lot of motivation going into it, because it requires continuous care. Sometimes as a person, it becomes very difficult to manage all those things. So what we end up with is suboptimal results. As a tradition, everything has been, the onus has always been put on the person who's suffering from it. Everybody else chips in. Their intentions are all good, but the responsibility always lies with the person who's suffering from it.
Yeah.
Now, what these programs tend to do is, and what we at TruePal believe is, and what we tend to do is that we take more than half of that responsibility on ourselves. We tell them that it is our responsibility to lead you on a right path. You just need to follow what we are asking you to. And of course, you have to follow whatever you feel is logical and you are convinced to do it. It's not, we're not forcing something down their throats to tell them, okay, this is what need to be done.
Got it.
So it's a teamwork.
Right.
Where we are an equal participant in what we do, but we also then share responsibility and accountability for what the outcome is.
Got it.
And that's what the managed care looks like. Now, when we talk about how it should be done, is that what we have to realize is, when we are treating somebody with diabetes, we always lose the larger focus. In the sense that if you would look at most of the programs, and I'm not going to pinpoint any of them, What these programs largely are focused on, what is your HbA1c looks like. But what we believe is that what we are treating is not HbA1c or diabetes, we are treating a person. What we need to look at is the larger health outcomes of somebody who has got that problem.
Right.
Now that person may have multiple problems other than diabetes. So then if something is not good for those problems, or whatever we do is harmful for them, will not give us a result in the long term. So the aim is that somebody who's come to you should live longer and should live healthy.
Got it.
And that's where you need to fit in your program. So now let me give you an example. I had this person coming from a very high government background, and that person had diabetes for 4 years. Highly motivated, just wanted to reverse diabetes. And then he got onto one of these programs. He lost almost 15 kgs. Now you imagine that his height was 175.
Okay.
To start with, he was 80 kgs. When he lost 15 kgs, he became 65. Now his age is 62.
Oh.
Now, one, that he lost all his self-confidence, because now he felt weak. He looked weak. He lost his confidence. And as a medical person, as an endocrinologist, if you would ask me, have we done him a favor? His medicines got reduced, no doubt about it. His diabetes was under control. But did we really prolong his life, or did we shorten his life? We actually shortened his life. His health outcomes are going to be poor now, because everything is, so weight is a great barrier, but it is not everything. We also need to know in each individual case where to stop, where it is okay to allow little amount of medicines. Just getting this thing in our mind is that our single-minded goal is to get you off medicines, off diabetes, even if it means shortening your life, does not really resonate with us. So individualization. So teamwork, taking responsibility, individualization is the second thing, that how we intend this program to stand out of these things, other things. And third thing is, what you have to realize is that most of these programs are, while they claim to have proprietary algorithms and everything, everybody is running on low carb diet. So you are being asked to take some protein based or pulse based breakfast, then pulse based dinner, and similarly things. So everybody's lunch, dinner, breakfast looks pretty equal. So there is no individualization for each and every person, because what we have to realize, apart from results, we also have to sustain the gains that you have.
Right.
If you keep on asking people to have same thing every day, it takes away joy in their life, and it is not really sustainable.
Right.
Third thing is that most of these programs have no integrated team. When I say integrated team, so you would have a coach, you would have a dietitian assigned to you. Periodically, you will go to your physician to talk about, who is going to talk about your drugs and doses and everything. But then there is no integration between what a nutritionist is doing and what your physician is doing.
Everyone's
Each of them
working in
is
silos.
working in silos, and each of them is reacting to what the other has done. But there is no, as a whole, integration. Like, for example, in our program, anybody, because everybody is going to show different results when we put them on a nutrition or a particular diet.
Yes.
So now the dietitian or the nutritionist has a mandate to immediately come back. They can come on their own. So now the consultation with physician, with endocrinologist, is not going to be prompted by patient. It's not their job, or it's not a scheduled appointment.
Got it.
But the nutritionist is going to prompt that. She is going to come back to me herself and ask me, okay, now is the time for you to do the required action, lower the drugs, because we are being particularly successful in this patient. So that no harm comes to that patient.
Got it.
And that rarely, but that also goes on the other side. If somebody's nutrition program is not working as well, a prompt would come to me. Maybe we need to schedule a call with the patient, and then we have to change or sort out their medicines.
Got it.
Similarly, and then from my perspective also, if I have a consultation with them, and then if I feel in their diet perspective and everything, something need to be changed or some weight need to be changed, then I always go back to the nutritionist, leave them a message. This is what I believe we need to change.
Got it. Got it.
So that's how the integrity with which team works, the intention with which team works is entirely different.
Got it.
Because most of other programs we believe and is run, they are beneficial to patients. At no point of time I'm saying they're not beneficial to patient. The kind of diabetes we had, I believe, is that if everybody pitches in whatever way they can, it's
Right.
going to be good for the society. But what I believe is, I still believe that the patient's overall welfare is still not at center of what we do. So what
Got
we've
it.
done in TruePal is that we've built this program from patient's perspective.
Right.
What the patient needs. Everything else is built around that as a protective layer, and then whatever else comes as a supplement, or every else other interest is very, very supplementary to what we do.
Got it. Got it. Speaking of diet, what are the do's and don'ts for a diabetic patient in diet, and what does their ideal diet look like?
Okay. So see again. So if you would ask me, is there something called a diabetic diet? I keep on telling people there is nothing called a diabetic diet.
Okay.
There is only something called an healthy diet.
Okay.
Right. So whatever is healthy for somebody with diabetes is again healthy for everybody else. So ideal diet is which will reduce their disease burden and which they can sustain.
Right.
So most of the time people get confused with, people would say that, okay, the ideal diet for diabetes is a 6 meal. You take 3 meals and then you eat something. So everybody should eat, keep on eating 2 to 3 hours. If you would ask me, that's a huge myth.
Okay.
That what we have to understand is that came from an earlier, again, decades prior, because at that point of time we didn't have enough medicines to counter glucose spikes.
Right.
So what people or physicians devised was that, okay, now you don't take 3 meals, you divide those 3 meals into 6 meals, take very small so that your sugar values don't go high.
Spikes are not very high.
So the spikes are not very
Got
high.
it.
So that's where the origin was. Now what has happened is we've made that 3 meals into 4.5 meals. Now everybody eats full at 3 meals and they keep on munching in between.
Right.
So rather than doing benefit, we are causing more harm to the people. Second thing is, it is not even sustainable. Me as a physician, for myself, if say I get diabetes, I go to a dietitian and she tells me, okay, now you need to eat 6 times in a day. In my busy schedule, it is not possible. I can't plan my food every 2 hours. So it is bound to failure right from the moment it was written on a piece of paper. So the ideal diet is which you can sustain.
Got it.
Now, if you would ask me simple do's and don'ts, I would just say 5 or 6 lines. We need to go off sugars. Now, which says that simple, the sugar, the jaggery, the honey, all those different versions of those things are same.
Right.
Right? Then whatever we eat in between, generally are carbohydrates rich and should be avoided. For example, biscuits. For example, mixtures. For example, fruit juices. For example, cold drink. Or for example, whatever you would have. Imagine yourself having something with your tea at the evening time. All of them would be carb rich. They ideally should be avoided.
Okay.
At any point of time, if you want to have snack, maybe have a fruit a day. And then maybe at some other point of time have a cup of milk or sprouts or eggs. Things which are nutritious, which are more loaded with proteins than with carbs.
Right.
So that's how you go about it. Fix yourself a schedule.
Okay.
Whatever schedule you can manage. It is not, I am not asking everybody to have their breakfast at 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock or have their lunch at 1 o'clock and dinner at 7 o'clock again. Whatever they can sustain. What we need more is a schedule. Let's not eat out of schedule.
Got it.
And add half plate of salad, whatever seasonal salads is, at lunch and dinner. So make that as a essential part of your meal. That's going to as we earlier discussed, going to bring down your glucose spikes.
Right.
And things which have more carbs in them, for like anything made of cereals that we take. Like for example, if you want to take a bread, so take a bread with some salad in it. Like for example, have cucumber, have tomato, and have onions in them. Make a salad sandwich and then have.
Okay.
For all other carb-rich foods like oats, poha, upma, dalia, have 50% of vegetables in them by volume. So add more fiber so that it brings down their index, glycemic index, and gives you less spikes.
Right.
So these are basic things, and then people end up asking, okay, what kind of a fruit do we need to take? Is it okay to take mangoes or not? So see, if you would ask me, mango has got same gram by gram carbs as your apple would have.
Okay.
Nothing more than that. Only problem with mango is that people tend to indulge with larger amount. It is very difficult to stop yourself at one slice of mango. If you can stop yourself at that, then we've got no problem. Then it is okay. Only fruits which has got much larger carbs like banana, like grapes, like lychee. So that we end up telling people, okay, don't have them as a fruit. But if you say you want to have a banana shake, then maybe 1/3 of banana with a glass of milk is a perfect alternative to sugar.
The amount of milk and reduce
and reduce the amount of banana. So then you've got a perfect recipe which you want to have, and which you can still have. So these are kind of do's and don'ts.
These are great actually. So there are many complications that come with diabetes, like vision problems, kidney problems, risk of strokes. Is it possible for someone to prevent these complications?
Right. So that's a great question, Viral. I think the only way we can tackle these complications is by preventing them. What we have to understand is none of these complications, while diabetes in initial stages can be reversed, none of its complications can.
Okay.
Let me give you some stats. So if somebody's got diabetes today, and if their diabetes is not well controlled, then 15 years down the line, their chances of having one of these complications is almost 50 to 70%.
Okay.
Now, when we talked about people now are getting diabetes at 30, 35 years of age. So what we are looking at is 55 years of age or 50 years of age. When I now believe is people are at peak of their careers and their productive lives. So now you are struggling with those complications because you ignored your diabetes.
Okay.
Because it's a silent problem, as we discussed earlier, that no symptoms comes if your values are like pretty okay. So now we see a lot of people coming to us at 45, 50 years of age with their eyes getting affected, with their kidneys getting affected, and then we feel very sorry for them because hardly we can tell them that they can be reversed. So the only way that these complications can be dealt with by preventing them. And when we have to prevent them, if you already have diabetes, one, aim for maximum lifestyle changes, which means aim for reversing your diabetes, so that it is not longer there. We are not struggling with medicines and other efforts. And if you have diabetes and it cannot be reversed, keep it under control. With guidance of your physician, keep your diabetes under control, keep your blood pressure under control, keep your cholesterol under control. These three things, we actually end up calling them ABC of diabetes control. A is A1C, B is blood pressure, and C is cholesterol. So your ABC goals should be met, and if you are meeting them, then there is a fair chance that none of these complications will come to haunt us.
Got it. So we did discuss that someone who's pre-diabetic or who has a family history of diabetes, it's important for them to monitor their blood sugar levels periodically and maybe get tested maybe every 1 year, 2 year, or something like that. Can you tell us what duration is it important for someone with diabetes to kind of check them? Is it something that they need to do every day, checking their blood sugar levels?
So see, there are so the way to look at this thing is there has to be a schedule, which can be personalized for each person with diabetes depending upon what their stage of diabetes is. And then we can make a schedule for them to check themselves. First of all, what I would say is that there is a set list of investigations that we need to do once in a year. That's
Okay.
called an annual exam.
Okay.
That includes their testing for eyes, for their kidney functions, right? So for their cholesterol levels. So all these things we need to do once in a year.
Okay.
And this is pretty standard, a textbook prescription which we need to do for everybody. Then there is an HbA1c test that we do every 3 months. The Western books may say that if somebody's diabetes is controlled, we can do them every 3 to 6 months. I generally end up telling them to do it every 3 months because now people come much earlier. It's a good idea to put in a schedule in their mind.
Got it.
So HbA1c every 3 months, an annual test. Now the last thing is testing themselves at home.
Yeah.
Now what we have to understand is testing themselves at home is very, very important. Because of one simple logic that you can't deny what your eye sees. Now if you check yourself, you believe me, half of my patients start doing well once they start checking themselves at home. Because once their values are high, they really have to look inwards and they have to change whatever they are doing, and my results are much better. Second thing is that how frequently to check yourself.
Right.
So see, if somebody has just got diabetes, is just on very low amount of medicines, specifically the earlier medicines which have very low potential of causing low sugars in these people, testing themselves maybe once in 10 days, once in a week would be more than enough.
Okay.
As a matter of habit.
Okay.
Somebody is like who's 7-8 years into diabetes, has on multiple oral drugs, and their sugars can tend to go lower sometimes. They maybe need to check them 2 times or 3 times in a week.
Okay.
Depending upon an individual person, if that person has a huge tendency of sugar values going lower, we can always ask them to check more frequently and maybe at a particular time when they have a tendency to have low values.
Okay.
Or higher values. While if somebody is already on insulin, then it is generally a recommendation to check themselves daily.
Okay.
Now the time of the day at which to check can again be personalized, depending upon what their schedule looks like.
Okay.
And what their food habits looks like.
Okay.
So we can always change that. So but these are 3 layers of testing that we need to do. Having said that, we should also know what we should not do. So because a lot of what we now see is that a lot of these corporate packages that we have, now people go and test themselves with lot of cardiac testing, with these testing. If you go by textbook and guidelines, there is an explicitly contraindication or an advice not to do it.
Oh. Okay.
Because there are studies that if you are otherwise healthy, say if somebody, let me give you an example. Say somebody has diabetes and has been doing physical activity every day, and he is able to say walk 5 kilometers in his 45 minutes walk. He goes for an annual testing as a part of package. He does a test and his treadmill test comes positive. Now it's a very, very gray area to deal with. Do we go ahead and do further testing?
Got it.
And make him do a lot of other cardiac tests and cardiac interventions, and whether doing those interventions are going to be beneficial in longer run. Another test that I commonly see is your bone density imaging. So now bone density is not recommended for anybody who's less than 50 years of age.
Okay.
Unless specifically indicated.
Got it.
So it's a huge wastage of somebody's money, somebody's resources, and then it puts undue psychological pressure. So you also need to know what to do and what not to do.
Got it. Got it. This is actually very helpful because nowadays, like you said, people just book tests and they're like, okay, let me just do this because maybe my peers are doing it or stuff like that. So always consulting a professional is advised before.
Absolutely. That's how we should go about it.
Got it. So the last question.
Sure.
I want top 5 pieces of advice for someone who's watching the podcast for them to manage their diabetes better.
So see, if I can include the entire spectrum, my advice number 1 would be that the diabetes has now reached our houses. What we need to worry about is our next generation. So inculcating good habits in our children, the way we feed them, the way we make them do physical activity, need to be looked into if we really want this pandemic to stem down. We have to understand, second advice would be that there is no alternative to diet and exercise.
Yeah.
If somebody is telling you take more medicines and then try to keep your levels controlled, and it is okay if you are not able to do diet and exercise, is not going to yield any results in the long run. There is no alternative to diet and exercise.
Got it.
Keep your weight to your ideal body weight. If you are physically active and if your weight is where it should be, then that's the ideal combination, which will also prevent diabetes, but will also tend to reverse diabetes, which is you should always aim for. If you've just got diabetes, you're 30, 35, 45, 50 years of age, you should always aim for diabetes reversal. Ask your physician, ask your endocrinologist to put you on that path and try to do it whatever it requires.
Got it.
Fourth advice would be to keep your sugar levels, keep on testing them. Don't ignore it.
Right.
Follow schedule of your investigations, because most of the times when we see complications are the people who believe everything is well, so why do I need to test? My fifth advice would be, whosoever gives you advice, look at it from your own logic. Anything which is too good to be true, as in anything, is not going to be well. And if somebody who's giving you advice, is he ready to take accountability for that advice? It is very easy to say that all these drugs are sham, all these diabetes is sham, you don't want to treat it. But then if we have that complication, and everybody has seen people who've got diabetes and its complication, it's a reality.
It's a reality. Yeah.
So is that person is going to take responsibility when you get that complication?
Yeah.
So seek the right advice.
Got it.
You have to have a professional person who's looking after you, working as a team, and then your health is being monitored.
Got it. Thank you so much, doctor. This was a very insightful conversation. My biggest takeaway from this conversation would be, first, monitor yourself regularly.
Absolutely.
And do not monitor yourself without consulting a professional. And the second thing is, get on the path of reversal.
Absolutely.
Even if you think that it is not possible right now, you should try it, and you should try to maintain the levels that need to be maintained.
Absolutely.
Yes. So thank you so much. Thank you for doing this.